I wasn't always this pathetic, but with one unfortunate event leading to another, I'm currently living a dog's life, begging my toxic wife to show some pity and please divorce me. But for the divorce to take place, this gaslight goddess is demanding something way beyond my current capabilities. Even before marriage, my life wasn't exactly sunshine and roses. I had a drunkard father who had long lost himself to alcohol and gambling. Instead of supporting me, he would force me to foot the bill for his addictions. I would have loved to move on and leave my drunk father on his own, but he was the only family I had left. My mother was already pushing up daisies. With no choice, I had to take on all kinds of odd jobs just to make ends meet. Sometimes I wished my circumstances were as good as the people around me. Still, I didn't lose hope and clung to the idea that my father would come back to his senses someday. I even handed him a massive amount of money once, just because he wanted to buy some cryptocurrency. But that fortunate day when my father made change never came, and his addictions dragged him to his grave, leaving me all alone. Although it was devastating to lose both my parents, part of me felt relieved knowing I was finally free. After getting over my dad's death, I simply started living a normal life. Fast forward few years now, with me finally free from my toxic wife. One day while watching TV, I saw two crypto gurus glazing about a new coin called Bitcoin, whose value had exploded exponentially, rising 2,500 times in just a short span. Turns out, it was the same coin my father had begged me to invest in before he died. To verify, I quickly opened the crypto exchange app, only to be dumbfounded seeing 25 billion won worth of Bitcoin sitting in my wallet, ready to spend. From that point onward, I became obsessed, constantly checking my wallet for every little spike in the chart. Honestly, having a digital currency that could vanish any second made me feel insanely anxious. That's why I'd been pulling all-nighters, staring at the charts in panic. Sometimes the coin went up, sometimes it dipped, making the whole experience unbearable. Similarly, one day I came home after a casual bike ride, opened my wallet, and nearly passed out. Not because I lost money, but because my coin values had gained another 20 million won, shooting my portfolio up by almost 2 billion won. In the days that followed, I went back to my job. Recently, my company had been running demos with surgical equipment we had delivered the previous week to different facilities across the country. The team sent to Busan wasn't doing too well, so the chairman wanted to send someone else more capable. With my tired and sleepless eyes, I raised my hand to volunteer for the trip. I didn't do it out of seniority, but because I hadn't had proper sleep in ages and thought maybe a trip would help clear my head. The chairman agreed but wanted another person to tag along. That's when the hottest woman in our office volunteered to join me. You might think I was one lucky bastard, and trust me, my coworkers thought the same. Some even begged to take my place on the trip, but the chairman turned them down since only 2 people were needed. By the way, her name was Sua. Speaking of names, I think I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Kim. In the days that followed, I finally got the chance to travel alongside the office beauty. On the way, she mentioned that the car we were in was hers. She'd bought it from her brother last year. I also learned she was genuinely excited to visit Busan, not because of the work, but because it was her hometown. She said she used to visit a lot, but her workload had been keeping her away. Watching her enjoy some free time made me realize something profound. Everyone in this world has a tiny world of their own, built from their dreams, ambitions, and little things that bring them peace. That made me wonder what kind of world I should be living in, with all the money in my pocket yet no peace in my heart. As the day slowly turned to dusk, we took a short break to relax. Right then, she asked me to accompany her to a department store. She said she wanted to shop now that we were in Busan. There also was something she wanted to tell me. At the time, I didn't think much of it or question her intentions, so I agreed right away. But during shopping later that day, I noticed something strange. If we were shopping online, we'd get things way cheaper. So why were we here? Things got even weirder when she asked me to pick a suit for myself and said she'd pay. When I curiously asked why, she blushed bright red and admitted she needed a favor. After I pressed her, she finally confessed. She wanted me to pretend to be her boyfriend in front of her parents. Well, I was stunned. She went on to explain that her parents were expecting her to be in a relationship since her younger sister was already dating someone. At that moment, my heart started racing and I got butterflies in my stomach. Eventually, I met her parents at a fancy restaurant. Not gonna lie, they were quite the yappers, going on and on about how perfect their daughter was. But honestly, I was on cloud 9 too, enjoying every moment of it. For a divorced guy like me, even pretending to be someone's boyfriend made my heart skip a beat. Since her parents knew we worked in the same company, they naturally asked how we got close. Of course, I had to spin some bullshit story to make it sound convincing. Seeing how warmly Sua's parents treated me reminded me of the last miserable encounter I had with my real in-laws. Those people were just as atrocious as their daughter. Their cold and cruel words still live rent-free in my head to this day. Long story short, I tried my best to win them over, but it was a lost cause. In comparison, Sua's parents felt like angels in human form. But thankfully, I'm no longer a married man. After that memorable evening, her parents finally decided to bid us farewell. They lovingly told their daughter to enjoy her date with me. Since it was all just an act, Suwa was clearly embarrassed, making it equally embarrassing for me. I think I'm just insecure for a girl of her caliber to be around me. Once we were alone at the beach, she apologized to me for dragging me into a mess I never signed up for. During the meetup, her sharp senses had picked up on my unease, which she suspected was caused by the bad memories this roleplay had triggered. I was genuinely surprised that she was worried about my divorce situation, so I quickly assured her not to worry about me. In fact, I really enjoyed her parents' company. Not to mention, the free food I got to eat was just the icing on the cake of the whole experience. To distract her from the topic, I suggested she show me around the area since it was my first time visiting Busan. My sudden request clearly gave her a lot to think about. I could tell she was trying her best to figure out the perfect place that would make my time worthwhile. Eventually, she pointed toward a fortune-telling camp, much to my bewilderment. After all, I was expecting some kind of memorable spot exclusive to this city. Nonetheless, we went inside, and just like any crystal ball con artist, the old hag behind the table managed to win over Suwa with her Barnum effect tactics. Among all those generic details, the hag also mentioned how Suwa had recently wasted an opportunity. At that moment, I wasn't sure where this old hag was going with it, but apparently she was talking about Suwa missing her chance to confess her feelings to me. The old hag assured Suwa that she would soon get another shot at the opportunity she had just passed up, and advised her to seize it this time. While Suwa was busy buying the old hag's nonsense, I wasn't even paying attention. For me, fortune-telling is nothing but a scam. Anyway, it was finally my turn to have my fortune told. Though I was reluctant, Suwa insisted I have my future unraveled too, just to make our visit worthwhile. And just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, the old hag actually managed to hit a nerve. That woman somehow knew my upbringing wasn't all sunshine and roses, and that I had grown up poor. She continued to surprise me by claiming that people like me are destined to amass wealth. She said it was just the beginning, and that my luck would continue to shine bright. She advised me to travel the world and collect new experiences along the way. Only then, she said, would I attract even more promising opportunities. All I had to do was live my life to the fullest, and opportunities would come rushing to me. Whether it's love or wealth, she said, I could attain anything I desired. Her words gave me a lot to think about, and my worries about my unused savings only grew stronger. I didn't understand half of what she said, but it was nice hearing something positive for a change. Unfortunately, that brief happiness vanished the moment the old hag demanded 200,000 won for the vague crap she'd just told me. It felt like an entire month's worth of shopping and bus fare just went straight down the drain. Thankfully, we managed to get out of that place before we were scammed any further. The next spot Suwa had in mind was Haeundae Market, where she wanted to grab some grilled eel. Meanwhile, I was still thinking about the dormant money sitting in my account, wondering if money could really buy happiness. I hadn't figured out the answer yet, but I didn't dwell on it for long. The moment itself was too pleasant to spoil with overthinking. Just like that, our 4-day business trip in Busan finally came to a bittersweet end, and we returned to Seoul. By the time I got home and checked my wallet, I was shocked to see that 200 million had vanished. But the veil of regret quickly lifted when I earned 300 million back within just 1 hour. Then it went up by another 100 million. Once again, I found myself staring at the screen all day like a gooner, watching the charts bounce up and down. I was literally losing my mind with all the stress gnawing at me. No matter how consumed I was with the money, I still had to show up to the office. There, I overheard some coworkers chatting about unpredictable real estate hikes that had helped one of them make a massive 300 million profit. But I wasn't paying much attention. These guys were small fries compared to me. Just last night, I had hit the 40 billion mark, making me feel like a level 100 mafia boss surrounded by level 1 rookies. Soon, their conversation shifted toward me, filled with envy over my trip to Busan with that office hottie. I tried to dodge their teasing and change the topic, but they were persistent. Finally, one of them redirected the conversation, talking to team leader An about how some stocks were growing too slowly lately. They mentioned rumors that everyone was now flocking to buy Bitcoin. The value of this coin had skyrocketed within months, and anyone who held onto it had their wealth multiplied by 8. Rumors suggested it had huge future potential, so naturally they all decided to buy a little for themselves. Meanwhile, I was just listening to those guys quietly, absolutely losing my bananas at the thought that I was going to get even richer. But reality had something else in store. By the time I got back home and checked the coin price, it had already plunged over 15%. If my calculations were right, I had lost 6 freaking billion in a split second. Like literally, I felt the life drain out of my eyes. Even the next day at work, the only thing looping in my head was that massive loss I had to swallow. To put it into perspective, that money was basically 45 years worth of salary. To avoid taking any more hits, I started contemplating selling the coins and just getting it over with. I mean, I still had 34 billion left, which was more than enough to last me a lifetime. But just as I was about to sell everything and finally breathe free, my nosy coworkers interrupted me and started interrogating me about my dull mood. While I tried to hide my inner turmoil, they noticed the crypto exchange app open on my phone. It didn't take them long to realize I was also into cryptocurrency. They started asking me how much I had invested, and I simply said, 34. But I didn't tell them what came after that. Million or billion. That piece of info had to stay with me if I wanted to avoid unwanted attention. And luckily it worked. I also told them the reason for my gloomy face. It was due to the dip that happened yesterday. My coworkers looked at each other and smirked, which instantly confused me. That confusion turned into shock when they showed me the current coin price, which had already bounced back after yesterday's drop. Those guys were kind enough to cheer me up, assuring me that the real surge hadn't even started yet. Hearing them talk so confidently about the coin, I fell into a dilemma again. Should I hold it a bit longer? Maybe I was being greedy? But whatever the case, it paid off big time. The very next day, Bitcoin went through another historic breakout. The price more than doubled, becoming a worldwide sensation. With that massive hike came a massive expansion in my portfolio. Suddenly I was sitting on 100 billion won, and just like any normal person would, my balls literally climbed up into my throat in sheer shock, and my heart felt like it was about to burst out of my chest. After I managed to calm myself down, I made a rational decision to withdraw the money and be done with it. But once again, greed kicked in and left me hanging. That greed inside me felt like it had taken shape, whispering in my ear to hold on just a little longer. But then I realized something. Maybe it was the fruit of my father's hard work, the same man who once begged me to lend him money. With that thought, I knew exactly what I had to do next. I couldn't just let the fruit of that struggle go to waste. The next day, Sua noticed my absence at the office. The first thing that crossed her mind was that maybe I had gone on another business trip. When she tried confirming it with our coworkers, she learned that I was actually taking a personal day off. Naturally, that confused her. I was a nobody with nothing major going on in my life, so her confusion was justified. She just hoped I was doing fine. Contrary to what she imagined, I was actually out casually shopping at a nearby Ferrari showroom. Out of all the cars lined up, the one that instantly caught my eye was the Ferrari 458 Italia. As part of his job, the salesman started rattling off specs and features, but I couldn't care less about that. I was only interested in how it looked. So instead of listening to his endless sales pitch, I shut him up with my Platinum MasterCard, intending to pay the full amount right there. You might be wondering how I was casually shopping for a Ferrari. Well, to tell you the truth, I followed the path my father had paved for me. I sold off all my coins. In US dollars, I was worth 100 million, roughly around 100 billion won in hand. With all that money sitting there waiting to be spent, I had no idea what else to do. So yeah, that's how I ended up buying a Ferrari. Once the transaction was complete, I walked out of the showroom like a total Chad who gives zero fucks. But deep down, I was on the verge of a heart attack. The car I had just bought was worth 490 million won. To give you some perspective on how insane that is, just remember when I was sweating my balls over paying that fortune teller 200,000 won. Nonetheless, I went all out checking every box on my wish list. With a luxury car and a fancy suit secured, the next thing on my to-do list was finding myself a sweet luxury apartment. So without a doubt in my mind, I stopped inside the best housing complex there is in my city. I didn't even think twice before requesting the receptionist to show me the best apartment available out here. The receptionist eventually gave me a tour of one of the most expensive apartments available. For a moment, buying such a luxurious place made me feel out of place. I wasn't used to this kind of lifestyle. The apartments were too luxurious for my taste. The bathrooms alone were bigger than my old home. And as for the view from that high-rise apartment, it was unlike anything I had ever seen in my life. In an instant, I made up my mind and proceeded with the transaction. There were a lot of things I had to give up in my life because of my miserable financial situation. But now, with all the money in the world, I didn't need to hold back anymore. Not only did I buy my apartment, I paid the entire lease amount in one go. It was one of the items on my personal to-do list. When I laid the entire payment on the table, the shocked expressions of the receptionists made every penny worth it. Let's not forget about Sua. While two coworkers were getting all chummy in the office and just about to kiss, Sua barged in and started demanding to know where I lived. Her intense gaze startled them both, making them wonder why she was so desperate to find out where I stayed. As you might have guessed already, she was just worried about me since I'd been absent from work that day. She thought I was sick and wanted to check on me. Her sudden request made the coworker question if it was normal for one colleague to worry that much about another. Either way, he didn't know where I lived, so he politely declined and promised to text me instead. As expected, I got his message a little while later, and I was surprised they suddenly wanted to visit me. When I realized I'd made them worry unnecessarily, I apologized and sent my address. Swa was grateful to Jongyup for getting my address for her. Given how excited she looked, Jongyup started to suspect that she might actually be in love with me. Eventually, both of them decided to visit me together. They were genuinely curious to see what kind of place I lived in, and they were looking forward to it. But the moment they arrived, they were shocked out of their minds. You might think they were dazzled by the luxurious new apartment I had bought, but in reality, I had called them to my old place. A basement apartment filled with filth and crawling bugs. I was in the middle of packing my stuff to move out. I could tell that Jongyup was particularly disgusted by the state of the place, but Sua felt something else entirely. Seeing that cramped, messy apartment was the first time she truly realized how bad some living conditions could be. She felt pity for me at that moment, living alone here after a divorce. Since I was moving out, both my coworkers kindly offered to help me pack and carry my things. I didn't want them to get dirty handling my stuff, but despite my insistence, they helped anyway. Outside, in the parking lot, their eyes suddenly darted toward a Ferrari parked in that third-rate lot. Naturally, they were confused. Neither of them could even imagine that the car might belong to me. They just assumed it belonged to the owner of the building or something. But reality was far from what they thought. Their brains practically froze the moment I told them to load my stuff into that car. They still refused to believe it, thinking I was just standing near someone else's Ferrari. But when I confirmed it was mine, it turned into a full-on jaw-dropping moment for them. Meanwhile, I could tell Jongyap was doing the mental math, calculating my salary, possible installments, and other costs, and none of it made sense to him. But that was only the beginning of their surprises. This time, I wanted to show them my new apartment, and they quickly agreed to come along. Though while inviting both of them, I forgot to take one tiny detail into account. My new car could only fit 2 people. So I asked one of them to come separately. At first, Sua volunteered to travel alone, but Jongyap stepped back and let her ride with me. I could tell the poor guy was crying inside for missing the chance to ride in a Ferrari. Since it was Sua's first time in a luxury car, she was naturally anxious. Riding with her reminded me of our last trip together, which, in turn, reminded me of her parents. When I brought her parents up, she admitted that her parents were expecting her to marry me sooner or later. Of course, I refused to play along with that fake husband act. At that moment, she turned toward me with a serious look. She wanted to ask something important, but her voice trailed off. When I asked her again, it was clear she didn't feel comfortable asking such a sensitive question, so she kept it to herself. If I had to guess, she probably wanted to ask about my divorce, how and why it happened. Though honestly, at that time I didn't think much of it. I just assumed she was curious about my sudden wealth. Either way, I was grateful that both she and Jongyap were minding their own business. Somewhere else, my ex-wife was on a phone call, holding our old wedding photo in her hands. Behind my back, she was likely plotting something. Not that I knew what it was, I was too busy enjoying my new life. In the days that followed, Jongyap also got to ride the beauty. It was then that he suddenly asked me an unexpected question out of the blue. He wanted to know how I viewed Sua. I didn't really like the question my colleague asked, but since we were hanging out together, I decided to answer his query and describe Sua in the best way possible. To me, she was a kind-hearted, capable woman who knows how to take care of people around her. I was really glad I got to work with a junior like her. Surprisingly, my answer wasn't enough for Jongyap, and he wanted me to say more. I already knew where he was going with this question, so I decided to close the topic. When we got back to the office, the other colleagues were shocked to learn that I own a Ferrari. When they asked how I managed to earn so much even though I bought Bitcoin pretty late, I simply gave them a convincing lie, claiming that I had reinvested the profits over and over. Those guys instantly fell into dismay after realizing how much I'd achieved with that coin. After all, both of them had already lost 40% of their money in the recent crash. Good for me, I sold it early, way before the catastrophe struck. My colleagues, however, mistook my insane luck for some kind of impeccable trading genius that I supposedly possessed. They wanted me to become their crypto guru and teach them the ropes. Among the 3 of us, only I knew they were barking up the wrong tree. To brush it off, I just blurted out some random nonsense. Just one line, heart of a beast. The 2 of them took my words way too seriously and started decoding the meaning behind it. I couldn't bring myself to lie too bluntly, so I decided to just keep quiet. Thankfully, I didn't have to say anything because one of them assumed what I said meant having a great mindset. Anyway, I let him live with whatever interpretation he liked. They kept questioning me about my financial success and started assuming I might have been exploring more business ventures. I simply played along, nodding to whatever they came up with. Though I did tell them a bit of truth too. I actually reinvested in multiple other coins because my instincts told me there was still room for crypto to grow. Before suggesting a few coins to them, I made it abundantly clear that I wouldn't be responsible for anything. It was their call to take the risk. Finally, I told them about XRP and Ethereum, the 2 coins with the most potential. As expected, both coworkers were skeptical since they were relatively new currencies at the time. So, I had to step in and explain everything. XRP's main purpose was to support internal bank transactions, while Ethereum aimed to use blockchain technology to enable various types of transactions. Of course, that didn't guarantee a price increase, but compared to other coins, these 2 were bound to attract a lot of investor attention due to their relatively low risk. The guys were actually surprised that I possessed such uncommon, in-depth knowledge, but it shouldn't have been that surprising. After all, I'd put my entire fortune on the line. While I was busy flexing my so-called knowledge, Sua was freshening up in the restroom. Her mind was mostly occupied with work, though the next thing on her mind was me. Then, a few girls joined her in the restroom, gossiping about the Ferrari I had recently bought. Since they couldn't believe I actually owned that much wealth, rumors started spreading that I'd bought the car with borrowed money and was now buried in debt. Not only that, there were also nasty rumors that I'd gotten into gambling and drinking. As those girls kept spreading lies about me, Sua kept listening silently until she reached her breaking point. To clear my name, she confronted them and demanded to know who started those rumors. Not long after, someone familiar walked into the office, immediately capturing everyone's attention. It was a woman, and a beautiful one at that. She went straight to the counter and asked the team leader about my whereabouts. The team leader wasn't much help. He intentionally concealed the truth and lied that I was away. But, just my rotten luck, I happened to walk across the office at that exact moment with a big stack of conference papers. The woman recognized my voice and turned toward me. As soon as she helped me hold the boxes, I thanked her, only to take them back right away. That woman was none other than my ex-wife. Yes, the same bitch who had already traumatized me enough. The moment I saw her face, my mind drifted back to the past, remembering every time she treated me like trash. Even during our honeymoon, she confronted me and belittled me for not booking the best hotel for our stay. She was a woman with a PhD in gaslighting, while I was just a simple-minded guy with straightforward thoughts. Her insults, her gaslighting, and the way she constantly made me feel insecure still echo in my head. And now, seeing her right in front of me, I didn't even want to make eye contact. But since she was working in the same office as my junior, it became my duty to respond, albeit begrudgingly. After putting the boxes down, I reluctantly took the files she wanted to deliver. I didn't flinch, let alone feel intimidated by her presence. After taking the files, I confidently walked past her, which only made her angrier. Her anger was obvious. She was pissed that I didn't act like the scared loser I used to be. Oh, I think I forgot to mention her name. She's Han Chae-won. She was annoyed about me showing up in a Ferrari at work. What a savage I was, I know, right? This bitch is now regretting divorcing me. Had she known I was going to end up filthy rich, she would have held on to that marriage a little longer. But since she can't gain anything by crying over spilled milk now, she decided to drag me down altogether. As soon as she entered the office, she put on that fake innocent bitch face, acting like a poor victim devastated by the divorce. Her toxic female friends surrounded her, trying to comfort her. While putting on this Oscar-winning performance, pretending to cry, she straight up lied about me, claiming that I yelled at her while she was just there to hand me some files. She kept farming sympathies left and right from her pro-feminist clique. But among all the women there, one nerdy girl wasn't dumb enough to fall for her act. Meanwhile, I was just doing my job quietly in my office space, though my mind kept drifting back to her over and over. She had finally come back. Initially, I used to fear that once she returned to the office, I'd feel sick just seeing her. But honestly, I wasn't intimidated at all. In fact, I didn't feel a damn thing. Suddenly, my coworker sneaked up behind me wanting to talk about something. Once we were up on the rooftop, he hugged me out of nowhere, while the others congratulated me for some reason I didn't understand. When I asked Sangi what the hell was going on, he finally spilled the beans. Turns out, XRP had skyrocketed in value, shooting up another 70% in just 2 days. The moment I heard that, I went into deep contemplation, running mental math on how much I'd just earned from the surge. As it turned out, my XRP investments alone had exploded to a whopping 100 billion, a number that had me sweating my balls out of pure astonishment. Meanwhile, my coworkers were just celebrating after making a few million, which was basically spare change compared to mine. They started pestering me about how much I had invested in XRP. I was hesitant to lie, but telling the truth might have blown their minds. So I casually said I'd invested 10 billion in each coin. Of course, they were shocked to hear such a massive number, even though that was barely 20% of my actual investments. With 10 billion invested, they figured my profit must have been around 7 billion. Then they began asking if they should hold or sell. But since I didn't want to be responsible, I told them to make their own call. You see, I felt that this sudden surge in XRP was kind of suspicious. For a currency that was originally designed to speed up bank transactions, it didn't make much sense for it to spike out of the blue. The only explanation I could think of was that greed was sweeping through the crypto market harder than anyone expected. 2 straight days of nonstop gains usually means something big is coming. When they asked what I planned to do, I simply told them I had no intention of selling yet. While my coworker thought I might be getting greedy, I figured that with everyone acting greedy, another surge was inevitable. That day, word spread fast through the company that I had struck it big with crypto. The flashy story of someone getting rich at a young age was enough to grab everyone's attention. Soon, my name was being mentioned in every conversation. While everyone was talking about how I'd made it big, and even helped others earn a bit too, my bitch of an ex-wife was hearing it all. And as you'd expect, she was utterly devastated, so much so that she threw her coffee on the floor, catching everyone's attention. Cut to Sua sitting inside a cafe. Her presence alone stood out, catching the eyes of everyone around her. Some even mistook her for a model. Though the interesting part was, she looked a little upset. Turns out, she was invited by Jongyap, who wanted to talk to her about me. Since she wasn't in the mood, she told him to cut the crap and get to the point. Jongyap respected her straightforwardness and asked what she thought about the rumors floating around about me. They said I was addicted to gambling and used to abuse my ex-wife. Surprisingly, Sua disagreed with everything he said. She knew it was just malicious gossip being spread intentionally. Jung-yup seemed satisfied with her answer and went in for another question. Does she like me? That was the one he really wanted her to answer, and it made her blush instantly. She quickly tried to friendzone me, but Jung-yup was persistent. He knew there was more to it than just simple friendship. Out of nowhere, he suggested she should confess to me. Of course, that was easier said than done, and she could barely hide her embarrassment. Meanwhile, I was busy dealing with my clingy coworkers, who were showering me with forced congratulations for my crypto gains. Even though it was all about me, I was the only one not enjoying it. My coworkers were overjoyed after taking my earlier suggestions and hitting it big themselves. I was honestly shocked to see how many people had already jumped into the market after hearing the rumors. And surprisingly, their decision wasn't wrong. They'd actually struck gold, with prices nearly doubling within days. Because of that, I was getting way too much unwanted attention and affection. They were convinced I must be sitting on more than 10 billion won from my initial 2 billion investment. But the truth was far beyond what they imagined. My assets had skyrocketed to 578 billion. Let that sink in. That's enough money to buy an entire company if I wanted to. I always knew XRP and Ethereum had potential, but I never predicted it would explode like this. By now, even the office hotties were asking me to tutor them about crypto and give them solid investment tips. But I was already skeptical of the sudden boost in XRP and Ethereum prices, so I didn't recommend they invest. When something rises too fast, it falls just as quickly too. The chicks were getting all impressed after hearing everything I had, but the only person who didn't enjoy the attention I was getting was my ex-wife. She had started to feel jealous. Jealous that I was the one getting everyone's attention. For a guy she once saw as nothing more than a pitiful fool, it was too much for her to handle. If only I had been this rich before, she wouldn't have dared to divorce me. At that moment, she was left with no choice but to play her trump card. Meanwhile, in the company's group chat, everyone was talking about my wealth as usual. The chat had turned more into a Telegram-style crypto channel filled with nerdy coin talk. Not that I minded it, at least everyone was having fun, and no one had taken any losses yet. Only then did I suddenly get a text from a familiar someone that made me hesitate. Of course, it was Han Chaewon. Being the gaslighting bitch she was, she tried to sugarcoat our divorce and wanted to get close to me again. She pretended to sympathize with my poor upbringing and being an orphan. To reconcile and heal things between us, she suggested meeting up. But I knew exactly what she was trying to pull, and I wasn't playing her games anymore. Just as I was about to block her number, I got a call from Sua. I wasn't expecting that at all and quickly answered it. She seemed surprised by how fast I picked up, so I had to explain that I was just messing with my phone. Still, I was curious why she called. She didn't reveal much, just said she was checking in. As we caught up, the conversation started to flow naturally. She asked if I had any plans for the holiday tomorrow. Well, there wasn't much to do, except I was planning to hit the department store to get some new furniture. Hitting the iron while it was hot, she asked if she could tag along, which honestly surprised me. She stayed silent until I gave my answer, clearly expecting the worst. But when I agreed, she lit up like a kid. And after the call ended, she was over the moon, literally so happy and embarrassed at the same time. Jung-yup's words suddenly echoed in her head, the same ones that might seal her fate with me. She wasn't sure if she had the courage to confess, but she hoped to do her best. When the next day arrived, I was already there waiting for her. Guess it's my fault for showing up too early. As I was about to hit a nearby cafe, Sua appeared right on time, which meant she was early too. She looked unusually happy that day and started calling me Appa instead of the usual honorifics. I guess since we were outside of work, it was fine. While I had no clue about her real intentions, she was blushing just from looking at me. With that, we walked into the store together. Let's not forget my bitch ex-wife, who had been waiting for me to arrive. As we strolled through the packed aisles, Sua seemed lost in thought, realizing it was her first time meeting me privately. Maybe the way we were shopping and laughing together could even be called a date, a thought that made her blush even harder. Meanwhile, I was completely oblivious and focused on finding the best furniture I could. Even she noticed my excitement. I mean, why wouldn't I be? After all, back when I lived in that semi-basement, all I had were thick old blankets. Just feeling the comfort of these premium fabrics made me excited. After dropping nearly 2 million won on 3 blanket sets, I went ahead and bought a cordless vacuum cleaner. Then came the turn for the latest refrigerator, and then the washing machine. And of course, a couple of sofas too. By the end, I'd bought everything I wanted, the total cost coming up to 56 million won. For real bro, I was actually having fun shopping. It's fun to shop when you're ultra rich. Even after buying all that luxurious stuff, it barely made a dent in my savings. Having that kind of money honestly feels like having cheat codes in a video game. In the rush of my shopping spree, I totally forgot about the girl accompanying me. I thought she must have been bored just tagging along. But contrary to what I assumed, she said she was actually enjoying herself. When she realized she was having such a good time with me, it reminded her of Jung-yup's suggestion to finally confess. By now, she understood she couldn't keep hesitating forever. So after gathering some courage, she turned toward me, only to be interrupted by me like an idiot. My dumb ass didn't even realize she was about to confess and cut her off mid-moment. She brushed it off and told me to go ahead with what I wanted to say. But when she insisted her question wasn't urgent, I started talking, only to get interrupted by another thought. Let's not forget my bitch ex. Absolutely losing her mind after I left her on scene. The fact that I didn't even bother showing up was driving her insane. The next day, as usual, my coworkers were celebrating their profits from XRP. At this point, the whole company had turned into crypto addicts, with me as their guru. Our assistant manager, Na Sang-guk, who once called crypto gambling, had finally tasted his first profit and lost his mind over it. He's the living definition of, if I'm not part of the corruption, then it's bad. In the 2 months that followed, Ethereum tripled, and XRP rose tenfold. These massive profits turned even the most straight-minded people greedy. People always believe that once they win big, they'll stop being greedy. But reality is the opposite. Once you take the bait of easy money, you've already fallen into the trap. That's when your morals and principles start vanishing, and you begin making one reckless move after another. The next thing waiting after that is always catastrophe. I might have been a whale in the pond, less likely to take the bait and get hooked, but I wasn't immune to it either. I still remember my father's advice. Just because you have an edge in the game doesn't mean you'll win. Victory only counts once you stand up from the poker table with chips in your hand. In the company chat, 2 names kept popping up in every message, mine and XRP. Assistant manager, Na Sang-guk was reading every text, stewing in envy. He believed I didn't deserve the praise, that it was just dumb luck that made me rich. He thought he knew better than me. His confidence came from the 100 million won he made in a month. He was convinced his luck would keep rolling, that soon he'd buy a riverside condo and a sports car. And then, all that'd be left was confessing his love to someone like Swa. At that moment, I announced in the group chat that I was going to sell both my XRP and Ethereum. Some coworkers couldn't believe my sudden decision. Na Sang-guk, on the other hand, thought I was insane to sell at a time like that. He believed he was smarter than me, and even tried to convince others otherwise. For all he cared, I was the reckless one in the group. Still, I calmly laid out my reasoning. The market had risen too fast, and correction was inevitable. Of course, I couldn't change everyone's mind, so I closed the chat with one final message. The next day, I met team leader An Myung-guk. Team leader An requested me to move to another location. This guy brought me to the rooftop and couldn't stop slapping my back with heavy hits. My boss was proud of my crypto investment advice. I began opening a letter and asked him for a 2-week vacation notice. For some reason, Leader An wasn't prepared and thought I was handing in a resignation. His face was freaking priceless, questioning why the hell a wealthy guy like me wasn't resigning from a shitty job. Recalling my conversation with Sua, I had told her about my plans to visit the United States. The thing is, I lacked experience and knowledge and I needed to fix that fast. Interestingly, Sua's words couldn't come out of her mouth. She supposedly forgot about what she wanted to say and only wished me a safe trip. Team leader An easily approved my vacation notice, but I was in a tricky situation and sought his advice. You see, I was a broke bitch with no career or talent, nothing of remarkable aspiration. I got all of this money, envying those who spent their entire lives on their dreams. It was here my boss criticized my thoughts and straight up called them bullshit. I was shocked to see this side of him. He told me about his childhood dream to become a golf player. Leader On practiced so much that his hands peeled off skin, and yet he kept going. I knew he was happy to pursue his dream, but then one day his worldview shattered. The poor guy discovered the immense fees his parents had to cover just to finance his dream. Despite everything, An had to make a difficult choice of killing his dream and ended up in an office. His new dream is to live with his family and just watch a casual baseball game. Assuring me with his wisdom, he emphasized that life is full of chances to pursue and that dreams shouldn't be obsessed about. All this time, I had been silently listening to his advice and found myself moved. My thoughts became clearer, allowing me to take one step at a time and pursue life slowly. Finally, my nosy boss creeped up on me and decided to address the elephant in the room. How much money did I make? I began speaking vaguely, asking about the price of an average apartment in Gangnam-go. The answer was 2 billion at the time, and using that number as a reference, I whispered the money I made in his ear. It's safe to say that this man's jaw dropped in shock, questioning reality. A part of him was really part of me, because I was not just walking away as an office worker, but a man who had officially entered the domain of trillions. Shortly after this conversation, I packed things up and left for the airport. Right away, I noticed premium treatment in first class, and remembered how shitty it is to fly in economy. I hummed and sat back with happiness, until a voice to my right attracted my attention. This woman was on a call, so I waved hello after we met eyes. She dropped her call to apologize to me. Curious to use this as a business opportunity, the woman handed me her personal business card. She was Jin Yu-gyung, an executive director and a brilliant success story for her age. As I read the details of her card, I introduced myself back as a simple sales rep of a pharmaceutical company. I could see her face crack in shock, questioning how an average Joe like me was out here flying first class. I followed up by saying I mostly worked in investments these days. But honestly, fuck her. There was a beautiful mouth-watering steak in front of me, stealing all my attention. I got to business by taking a bite, and received a jolt of how juicy each bite was. I was finally beginning to understand what first class truly felt like. Meanwhile, Yu-gyong was carefully eyeing me down. She'd already guessed that it was my first time sitting in first class. Coincidentally, we locked eyes, and I praised her for her elegant posture. Describing how natural the knife looked in her hand, I caused her to fluster and turn back. She felt really happy receiving such praise. Shortly after, Yu-gyong showed me her company's new car commercial concept. I was in absolute awe because this model is supposed to target the US market. Out of nowhere, she asked me about my current vehicle of choice. Even though I'm a humble guy, I casually decided to flex my possession of a Ferrari. The woman froze in sheer shock and told me they were working on sports models and even electric vehicles. I actually connected my experience of driving a Mirai electric car at a certain point in my life. I could see her face light up, ready to hear about the experience, until I annihilated this woman by criticizing the car's accelerator and brake system. Even though I was honestly recalling my experience, Yu-gyong was out here losing it. At the same time, I realized how much I had changed. Before, I didn't even have the balls to talk shit to a woman of her caliber. Deciding to peek into her interests, I learned that Yu-gyong had a passion for cars as a kid. She was an enthusiast who drove dozens of different cars. Curious, I asked about the details. Her recent experience involved driving a Mini. She loved it for its pretty design. I could finally see her face lighting back up again. The flight resumed, and we were about to land at the San Francisco airport. Yu-gyong spoke of all the jibber-jabber for the remainder of the flight, talking about company specifics and market difficulties. She killed my mood and interest by that point. It was a torture sitting next to a yapper. At last we landed. She offered me a handshake and hoped to reconnect in Korea. I had finally escaped the torturous flight after enduring her chatter for hours, even regretting that I bothered to speak up at all. Exiting the airport, I welcomed the diverse experience at San Francisco. My dream of coming to the States had become a reality. The person welcoming me called out my name. It's Myungwoo, my old friend. We shared a semi-basement back in college and went through the toughest of times. He was my ride or die until he got lucky and landed an amazing role in a company here. I couldn't help but notice his chubby face and bloated belly. He went from a stickman to a bowling ball. Myungwoo offered to eat, but instead of taking me to a restaurant, this man introduced me to America's finest meals, a burger. While all of this was happening, my shitty ex-wife suffered in silence for ignoring her all this time. Chaewon shared a table with her friends, sharing how angry she felt about me leaving on a trip to the US. She even invented a gambling addiction out of nowhere and called me a violent man, a cheater, and even a scumbag. Chaewon didn't know she was about to get a reality check from the baddest bitch on the block. This woman humbled her ass, reminding her that since they're both now separate, she shouldn't be bothered. Team leader Choi Sohei was done hearing her rant and kept her silence all this time. But seeing this woman talk shit constantly about me was shocking to her, especially when everyone knew I acted differently from her stories. My ex-wife was given a reality check by Sohei, who bluntly and frankly called it an act of jealousy. My ex-wife couldn't take the heat and got up, complaining about her team leader's harsh words as she went away. In the bathroom, my psychotic ex-wife mouthed her frustrations about Sohei, venting out all her anger. Chaewon realized that no one was buying her bullshit story, but funnily enough, this crazy woman had also started investing in crypto and planned to silence everyone with her wealth. The next day, that one dude who was a keyboard warrior against me in the group chat started flaunting about his 10% return on his investment. He dubbed me an impatient guy and told others to invest at the best opportunity. The funny thing is that even my coworkers could notice his egomaniacal behavior. Team leader On found himself immersed in the idea of investing, regretting not being bold sooner. His mind was consumed by the idea of coins. While my boss was having a dilemma, his friend casually admitted selling all of his amount, trusting my gut. The reality is, coins were meant to rise and fall, but it took real guts to sell a rising coin, knowing when to quit. The moment he read my message about selling all my coins, he knew what to do. Back to the States, I'm out here enjoying a burger set and experiencing true joy. Myungwoo wanted to take care of me throughout my visit, not knowing I had made more bread than NBA players by this point. Myungwoo found himself drawn to a voice coming from two Americans. They called him Khan, which stood out to me as an odd name. Chris and Helena are his new buddies in America. Sharing a table with him, they sang praises of his work with the dynamic control model. Intrigued, I asked him immediately about it and learned that it's actually a software for automatic driving. The nerdy guy with glasses, Chris runs a startup company called Aurora. Helena is similar and also runs a company focusing on eco-friendly products. I knew they were both entrepreneurs and couldn't help but ask them about their starting experience. Chris confirmed that even though it's a difficult phase, entrepreneurs are people who fought through difficulties to experience the reward. It was no different than climbing a mountaintop to earn its brilliant view. I admired both of them. Chris highlighted Myungwoo's exceptional talent, who is responsible for bringing the brilliant ideas in Silicon Valley to a reality. His programming skills are one of a kind despite his burger addiction. I sat there enjoying the company of amazing people, realizing spending my money for the trip was worth it. That night, Khan took me to his place. This tiny place cost a fortune here, thanks to San Francisco's competitive landscape. He tossed me a beer right away and began asking the real questions, wanting to know how I got here. Several cans of beers later, I explained everything to this guy about my divorce. My longtime homie felt really happy to hear Chaewon was out of my life. He felt truly happy that I found salvation in crypto. Plenty of people in the US struck a similar fortune, and I learned that some of them even made their own coin. This was a novel idea to me that caught me off guard, but made sense because of the influence of Bitcoin. Inspired by the act of creation, I threw a powerful idea in Myungwoo's face, the desire to start a new company. My homie thought I had too many beers and couldn't think right, but I was dead serious and inspired by the approach of entrepreneurs. Being my best friend, Myungwoo talked about 3 crucial factors in starting a company. The first one revolved around securing capital, the second was the grand idea, and the most important one of all was the qualities of the CEO. Despite having perfect capital and perfect ideas, none of it mattered jack shit if the CEO was a fucking monkey. Capital is important too, but it wasn't enough. That's what I learned, which made me wonder the kind of person I had to become in order to bring my vision to reality. I began thinking of a dozen different qualities. My friend argued that startups were way more difficult than investments and advised me against the idea, but I wasn't finished and asked about the specifics of investing in a company. The next day, I sat across Chris, expressing great interest in investing in his company. For some reason, he didn't expect this conversation to happen at the burger place. To impress this guy, I whipped out my fancy research that I conducted on Aurora, his company. I noticed the upward trend and the interest of Korean conglomerates in his company. This meant that Chris's company was about to soar really high. Chris didn't seem interested until I shocked him with another hit piece of information about their battle against an investment company. I offered the savvy entrepreneur a real piece of value, expressing keen interest in a partnership rather than a mere investment. In fact, I was willing to put down $500,000 just for 10% equity as a partner. Hearing my proposal, Chris decided to check the documents. He fought back with an offer of $700,000. Much more than my proposed offer. Even my buddy called him out on his outrageous and sudden increase. But I had a better idea. I countered with a staggering $900,000 for 20% instead, shocking Chris. Myungwoo outlined Chris's sticky situation, who is currently facing huge trouble dealing with his investment company and running short on capital too. My buddy emphasized how I would remove all of that risk for Chris, and in exchange for some equity, he'll never meddle with Aurora's goals. Myungwoo's Feitas decided to share an analogy of eating a burger versus eating a double cheeseburger. The salivating idea tempted Chris, and he eventually gave in, scoring a successful deal with me as I officially became Aurora's partner. I was really happy after that meeting. Even if my investment failed, I would end up with great experience to learn from. Again, I had only Myungwoo's ugly face to thank, as this guy is single-handedly responsible for backing me up. As a good friend, I wanted to repay him for his help someday. Seeking his advice, I asked him to recommend more companies so I could enjoy investing more. Even though I came here for a vacation, I couldn't help but wonder how my friends were holding up at the office. The news of my deal with Aurora became public, and all other investment proposals were turned down, even from Yugyung's company. Alongside Aurora, Metwave also rejected them in exchange for an individual. By this point, Yugyung couldn't wrap her head around what was going on. The idea of a single guy investing in multiple startups and stealing company-wide deals stunned her. It was a loss on both sides for Yugyung's company, which made her understand that they weren't dealing with the average Joe here. Instead, she wanted every last bit of information on me so she could steal those shares. Despite her cunning experience in her industry, she failed to consider my sudden moves. Yugyung was hell-bent on finding me no matter what. And then, it began. The same flourishing crypto rise of Expel's empire began to fall, and every single one of my colleagues confronted the Reddit-dwelling sewer rat keyboard warrior for his betrayal. They trusted him and lost 20 million won right away. Perhaps the sweetest justice came to my shitty ex-wife, Chaewon, who had also lost everything. Turning over a new leaf, the bastard acted like they were the ones who were idiots to rely on him. It's not like he held a gun to their head to invest. But trust me, it's the shittiest response imaginable, and my coworkers had every right to be angry. Among the turmoil, people began to realize why trusting my advice was so crucial back then. If they had done that, they would have at least secured a principal amount. My coworkers wondered what I'd been up to by now. To be honest, I was in a life-threatening situation. With a gun in my hand, I mercilessly shot down my targets. My partner Myungwoo was by my side until I saw his body on the floor. He was done for, and while I was distracted, someone shot me in the back, ending my life. The player then took out a melee weapon, but it was nothing more than a stupid frying pan. Bro thought he was in PUBG and began smashing our heads, humiliating us in the game. The reality is, we were just playing an online game and couldn't secure a chicken dinner. Our obsession for a revenge match led us into another game. Remember when I talked about repaying my buddy over here? Well, as his homie, I got this man a whopping new house. However, Myungwoo didn't really like the idea of receiving a gift. Bro was hardcore refusing everything until he saw this magnificent gaming PC casually resting in the house. There were all kinds of consoles. It was the kind of place you could consider a man's ultimate dream. Both of us agreed to move in together. During our gaming session, I told him about my interest in backpacking. I came here for 2 weeks, but requested team leader An to extend my stay. Suddenly, an idea burst into this man's mind as he asked me for a favor. At first, I thought he wanted to tag along, but it appeared that he had different plans. So we went, boarding a bus ride while a gorgeous blonde lady was sleeping on my shoulder. I just wanted a simple trip, but this lady made things awkward. You see, my dumbass best friend actually wanted Ellie to tag along. She's supposedly an acquaintance of his, and while I didn't really mind her joining, I wanted to know more about her. Turns out the girl that she's just a simple graduate, and that's how I was left stranded with her on the bus. In fact, I was so lost in my nightmare that I couldn't even hear her calling out my name. Ellie roared her excitement, because at last we had finally arrived in Los Angeles. The stunning young lady paralyzed everyone with her looks. Both of us had actually come here for the first time, but it seemed that Ellie was way more excited than I was. She wasn't even feeling the least bit worried, come to think of it. She's going on a trip with a random guy and doesn't fear a thing in the world. Her behavior informed me that I had yet to learn about the culture. While I was busy overthinking shit in my head, she got grumpy for me ignoring her. I apologized and asked her to try again. Turns out that Ellie's got a schedule we can follow for the whole trip. It was a convenient idea for me to relax, so I stuck to following her lead. Ellie and I began by exploring everything we could get our hands on, including the Universal Company HQ. By the sunset, I made my memories with her a physical form as she dragged me for a photo shoot. Enjoying the beautiful sunset, we drank a toast in our trip's name. Ellie thought I was exhausted by following her lead, but I actually had a really fun time exploring things around with her. I wouldn't even have explored LA like this without her, so I felt grateful. In an effort to learn more about me, she asked about my interest in coming to the States. I kept it simple and told her I was curious about a different culture. Then I asked her the same question. Turns out that the fresh graduate wanted to catch a breath of fresh air before starting her professional career. The brilliant young woman secured herself a job on Wall Street and knew her life was going to get busy. I found my jaw dropped after hearing her accomplishment. Ellie's greatest dream is to secure a huge business deal in her sector for the world to remember. Pouring us a drink, I offered a second toast to wish her the best in her endeavors. I also included the success of my own ambitions. Both of us thought that one day we would cross paths and do business together someday. By night, we secured ourselves a hostel room to stay in. Luckily, and surprisingly, our room didn't have anyone besides us. Ellie sat down on her bed, looking like a 5-star meal, and told me how nice it was that we were alone. To say that I was bricked up is an understatement, and I quickly told her not to make such jokes. She stopped her teasing, and soon after, both of us fell to sleep. But restless as I was, I just couldn't sleep at all. The way she casually implied us smashing wasn't in my bingo cards. My virgin ass almost couldn't refuse her offer, but doing so would have given Myungwoo a bad name. That's how I realized I had to be careful of my third leg from now on. The following night, we spent time enjoying ourselves the best we could. Gorgeous as she looked, Ellie came over with a smoking, sexy swimsuit. Leaning down on me, she teasingly suggested we head for a nice swim. I begged the crypto gods to give me strength. In the pool, she dove with such elegance, while I chickened out and watched her come out. Looking wet and shiny, she appeared more gorgeous than ever. I told her I wasn't really good at swimming, but she found this an opportunity to drag me into the water. Ellie wanted to become my tutor, but I was out here shitting bricks. In the end, American culture appeared way too easy and open. I wanted to keep some distance and maintain our relationship as it was, so I told her I'd leave early. Meanwhile, a bunch of clowns arrived to rain on our party. These hotshots thought that they could score a smoking gun of a beauty like Ellie. Perhaps the scariest part was that there was one dude interested in me. Miss me out on that gay shit. Ellie declined their invitation, but these guys didn't even care about being rejected. Her gorgeous personality seemed alluring to one of the clowns, and he was about to touch her when I swooped in, caught his hand, and told them not to touch her. Ellie was shocked to see me rise to her defense. Even though I became a big guy and defended her quickly, I had no idea what to do next. I mean, it was a 3-on-1 and I was going to get my ass beat. My main priority was to secure Ellie's safety, but to my shock, it was Ellie who came up to them like it wasn't a big deal. Confronting them, she demanded the losers to leave if they wanted her to forget everything. The punks told her that hitting on someone wasn't the act of a crime, but it looks like Ellie was prepared. Suddenly, guards popped out of nowhere, and I don't know what to tell you, but the gay dude among the three still seemed turned on. The macho-looking behemoths casually told these pencil necks to follow them for harassing women. And that's how these guys were swept away, while Ellie and I shared a lovely time with our drinks. The guards even compensated them for their unfortunate situation, a custom similar to Korea. It seemed that Ellie found herself interested in me even more. She wanted to hear about my background, about my life. I stared at her blankly, before revealing my misfortunate childhood. I lived a shitty and poor life without parents. Just when I began telling Ellie about my fallen marriage, she instantly became angry on my behalf and called Chaewon a witch for treating me like crap. She thought I was Superman for enduring my ex-wife's bullshit, and honestly, she might be right. At the same time, Ellie understands why someone took an interest in me. She began charting out my best qualities, highlighting how respectful I was, and that any woman would fall for that. Her beaming smile made it seem like she was hitting on me, so ultimately we decided to call it a night. Resting in the hotel room, I found myself calming down just a bit. I would be lying if I said I didn't think of Ellie's gorgeous looks and beaming personality during that time. Focusing on the grind, I checked the market and learned about the staggering demise of XPPL. The same goes for the rest of crypto coins. All of them experienced a ton of losses. I found myself lucky to have sold at the right time. Ellie suddenly came to my door at a strange hour, so I quickly opened up to welcome her in. I think my brain melted at the sight of her silk dress wrapped over her body. Yep, I was short-circuiting like any guy would. I tried to confront her, but she placed a finger on my lip. It was at this moment I knew I was about to get laid. She shared my bed, questioning the nighttime view of Las Vegas. I thought of it as the most beautiful, adding that the Santa Monica beach contrasts it well with its natural beauty. Teasing me even more, Ellie asked if I was fine chatting with her like this. Of course, this woman was looking delicious as hell, but I was out here singing the Korean anthem to preserve my virginity to the very end. She realized that I was trying to evade her attempts and asked why. Gripping the sheet, I told her about my fears. I'd already fallen out of marriage once, and right now I'm scarily afraid of losing everything for one moment's worth of pleasure. The idea seemed tempting, but Ellie is a good friend who I didn't want to complicate things with. My explanation really bummed her out. As an alternative, she begged me to stay up all night talking about stuff. I was okay with that. We spoke about a bunch of different topics before I crashed out. She was still awake, playing with my face, disappointed that I had fainted early. Using this moment as a cash grab, she enjoyably came close to my body. Despite her disappointment of being unable to get in my pants, she settled with a hug for the night. The following day, we bid each other farewell after our incredible trip. Ellie was curious about my plans to return to Korea. I confirmed her assumption and told her goodbye, but something in her hesitated before she bulldozed me with the warmest hug. Pressing her whole body, including her stress balls, she begged me to message her upon arriving in Korea. For a moment there, I wanted to wrap my arms around her too, but hesitated and stopped. I boarded the flight and left the airport, reminiscing about the end of my long trip. I had made valuable relationships with the ambitious people of America, people I never could have enjoyed the company of in Korea. Each city was tremendous and different in its own way. All of it was driven by chunks of huge capital. Seeing America flourish in such a way ignited a dream within me, the desire to do more, to take greater risk, to strive further beyond. Most of all, I wanted to earn more money than ever. It always bothered me why billionaires worked hard even in old age. It's not because they had to, but because earning money is the most exciting venture there was. Finally, I landed at the airport, where my buddy greeted me with great joy. Jung-yup didn't just come alone, but brought Sua along too. She greeted me and asked about my trip, and I just lit up seeing her. We talked to each other while Jung-yup probably felt like the ultimate wingman watching us bounce off. Hungry? We settled to eat some lunch. Of course I was going to treat them to a 5-star hotel. All this time, Chaewon kept messaging me, but I didn't give a rat's ass about her. I enjoyed the comfort of my apartment. Despite America's incredible view, I still felt biased towards the scenery of my place. Finally, I checked messages of all the people who hit me up. Myungwoo and Ellie gave me exciting news, while I thought about my future plans to visit the States more often. Among the messages, I found Chaewon. She wrote an emotional text, acting like I was the one losing out on the deal for going without her. This woman acted like a romantic philosopher and confessed her feelings of being in love with me. Just reading that message gave me chills. Clearly this bitch needed an appointment with a therapist. Meanwhile, Chaewon was out here all by herself, knowing I'd ghosted her again. That romantic side turned into a menacing one. First she called me an idiot, then she gave herself the comfort of having moved on with her life, threatening me that my life at work was going to get complicated. I was afraid of her and blocked her again, once again feeling convinced of my decision to divorce this evil wench. The following day, I came to the office with a whole bunch of souvenirs for my buddies. To my utter shock, everyone was looming over in despair without a hint of excitement. Some of my buddies greeted me. The ones who followed my advice made a profit and pulled out of crypto at the right time. That made me realize that the reason these people were acting like zombies was because they lost a shit ton thanks to assistant Na Sanguk's shitty advice. Experiencing a 95% crash was not easy to handle. Then I saw my team leaders, who teased me for not welcoming them sooner. In the meeting room, I gave them 2 expensive watches, making their very hands tremble in awe. Both of them were from Rolex, a gesture of my gratitude to the leaders who supported me from my newbie days. Team leader On couldn't stomach receiving such a gift. Both of them thanked me but wanted to return the watch right away. I assured them that the price didn't even scratch my wallet, so it was okay for them to take it. It was then that I shockingly discovered the rumors of me losing my money. Some crazy clown lied to everyone in my office. Pondering the identity of this person, I stood at the rooftop. The person in question came. It was the sleazeball bastard Sanguk, giving me fake sympathy for me losing my money. I figured that his ugly ass just wanted a chance to step on me again. Sanguk's superiority complex has always been clear from day one. All he cares about is his pride. He's the one who made me miserable in my daily life. He offered his condolences to me, giving me a shitty smile and allowing me a space to open up about my supposed losses. Naturally, I deliberately took the bait. First off, I acted like I was doing him a favor by revealing everything, begging him to keep everything a secret between us. I could see this bastard's face light up in excitement at the news. Then I shocked him, announcing that despite making $10 billion from crypto, I barely have $10 million left. Brother turned into an Oscar-winning actor, offering me his condolences. I knew this guy had a loudmouth and wanted him to spread this false news even more. Like clockwork, the news went viral. This guy spilled the tea to everyone, using the exact words I used. The people found it difficult to accept this news, seeing as I had just gone to America. Most of them became disappointed in me, while Sanguk, the sleazy cockroach, felt euphoria. He wanted to see me fall. His pride couldn't take me out performing him. Bro treated me like a worm who was always going to sit below him. While Sanguk waited for his next stage to humiliate me again, a man came into the building, inviting everyone for a sudden company dinner. Sanguk opted out, before hearing that the dinner would include a high-end beef restaurant. His mouth salivated, and the next thing he knew, he and the others were welcomed to the premium restaurant. My colleagues were stupefied, questioning how one could afford an expensive place like this. As dumb as Sanguk was, he knew that it wasn't a place one could afford, not unless it was a meeting between directors. That made him wonder if the CEO of the company was planning to show up. To his shock, Sanguk saw me arriving at the same place. He couldn't stomach the fact that I was enjoying my time with the team leaders and even planned to humiliate me in front of everyone. First off, I stole everyone's attention by welcoming them. With the stage set, I told my friends that I wanted to thank them with a proper dinner after my return, allowing them full freedom to eat as much as they could. Sanguk's reality shattered into a billion pieces. I had expertly gaslighted him, acting like I had lost all my fortune, and then I pulled this move to break his mind even more. The rest of the people began discussing the same, knowing that I could never have pulled off such a lavish dinner if I was broke. Instead, they blamed Sanguk for the false information. His pride was hurt again, so he stood up in anger. Both team leaders vouched for me, assuring Sanguk that I could never have lost such fortune. But they were deeply disgusted by his behavior to reveal confidential information, spreading the news of his demise. I caught the rat right where I wanted. Coming out of the shadows, I confronted him and allowed Sanguk to enjoy the beef. My old self would have ignored his bullshit because the rumors this man spread about me weren't far off from reality. But no way in hell was I going to tolerate that behavior anymore. Feeding him sweet poison with my words, I assured Sanguk that this dinner was especially prepared for him. Where I am right now, no one is going to step on me ever again.